Whoop, whoop, that's the wrong one. That is the wrong freaking one. But that's all right. We'll edit it out.
If you're playing music, I can't hear it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, we'll knock it off.
Is it Kanye?
Yes, it was the good
President
morning.
Kanye?
Yes, President Kanye. All right, so we'll skip that. Maybe I can do it in the edit.
Okay.
Anyway, all right. So let's take it just 3.
Hey!
Oh!
Welcome!
Welcome! Hello, my friend. Welcome.
Hello.
Yes.
Welcome everyone to Conversations from the Compound. And we're not actually on a compound. It's more the spiritual sense of being on a compound. And, I have to be honest, Wadooah, this week has been, I know, incredibly difficult for you, my friend.
Yes. That's why, I loved your idea for episode 3 being about sources of hope and talking about things that we are hopeful for during this time.
Absolutely. But I do want to, oh, was that me? That sounded like some terrible feedback. But I do think, I know we've, this is our 3rd episode, so welcome everyone.
We made it.
We made it to number 3. It's like the 3rd date. That means we get to have some loving.
That's right.
So,
and if you're new, welcome. If you've been with us this whole time, thanks for hanging in there with us. This is us. It only gets better. Just you wait.
But I don't know if you saw Wadooah, but I tried to take a pass at what exactly is our compound. And so I would describe it as kind of like that idea of your happy place, right? So when you go to your happy place, and I think for me, it's a large, beautiful, piece of land, and you can see mountains and streams, maybe an ocean, and we're living there in this incredibly responsible way that has a very small carbon footprint, and we're super creative. And we're inviting all kinds of wonderful people to join us. They kind of come and go. But it's a place where we get to work together. We get to feel safe. And we can train to fight zombies.
Absolutely.
Because the apocalypse is coming.
The apocalypse is real. I mean, it's a place of respect. I mean, it's fun. You feel safe at all times. You've been training to be a ninja. But yeah, no, that's been our dream that we talk about. Like we just gotta figure out that patch of land and figure out who we want to put on that compound. But I know that it starts with you and your family, and maybe a select few of mine.
Shani is invited.
Shani is invited. Not everybody's coming. That's spoiler alert. But yeah, especially now in this time of COVID, anything that is about being outside right now, and outside without worry, and that's not just from COVID. That's also, without worrying about if your neighbor or somebody walking down the street is going to mess with you, just because of otherness. So and them having a problem with that. So that is a source of hope, not just in this time of COVID, but that one day we will have this place. But this is, kind of the idea for our conversations from the compound, because this is when we're not, training to fight zombies or cultivating the land. Then we would be, breaking it down after a big meal, maybe a Wadooah salad. Maybe Joel's chicken.
Yeah, exactly.
and just talking like real people, and that's something I've always appreciated about our friendship.
That's awesome. But today specifically, I know. So just a quick recap on last week, friends. For those of you that are tuning in, we decided to talk about how much we love the output that came from J.K. Rowling early. and how much we despise the output that is coming from her recently, and that juxtaposition. So that was kind of a mixed bag of a conversation. And I think today, and I think, Wadooah, you should talk a little bit about how your week went, but today is going to focus on a source of joy and hope and creativity, because he is one of the greatest creators of our time.
Yes, one of the greatest creators and one of the most powerful men in Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
Yes, and like once upon a time we would have thrown JK up there, or she was up there, but now we have to rip her down, especially given just the the events that just keep on going. She's not stopping. We don't know why. So if you haven't checked out that episode or don't know what we're talking about or want to hear what we had to say about it, check out the other video. We'll include it in the links below. But yes, I'm super excited to talk about Ryan. But before we do, I guess it is only fitting that we talk about what the COVID, since, especially me being here in California, and I remember at the beginning of this great global pandemic, just checking in with people. And I would always say, well, luckily I live in California, and grateful I live in California. And, that tide has shifted so much. And now we're potentially one of the epicenters. My home state of Florida is looking to be an epicenter, as well as a few others. And now Quinn, when she was at the epicenter, in New York, has a very different lifestyle than what we're living and seeing here in sunny California. And it's a little maddening to look outside. You see the trees and you see the green, but you can't really get out and you can't really interact with people. And if you are out, don't forget your mask, because especially now, I don't have any kind of problem with the fact that places like West Hollywood and Santa Monica and a couple other places are fining people for being out in public without wearing masks. Which reminds me, I'll find a compilation of some Karen videos of them doing meltdowns for not wearing masks. Karens and Kens, because it's really surprising, but it's like that they're still doing this now, but even back then when this was a thing, that it was a political, something about politics and not about health. And yet here we are. And, so Monday waking up to, I should take a step back, is like, I got outside a little bit on Saturday, for better or for worse. I had to do this training. It's amongst the people for a change, as opposed to being in my abode with my fur kid in, the safety and just Zooming with people and catching up by phone. So it had this like effect of a return to normalcy, even though there was a lot of masking, there was a lot of hand sanitizing, there was a lot of, do I do this? Or just, those interactions were weird, but at least it was like, I'm among people more than, I think it was like about 20 people in that room. And we were all spatial as much as possible, but and then teaching and all that is, very energetic, more so than I've had to put out on a Zoom. And then you come back home and wake up on Monday and it's just like, oh, right. And we're back, that's like all this build up to like, oh, right. And then, to turn on the news and, I don't really turn on the news, but I saw, read an article, first thing in the morning that says, U.S. passports are worthless, and there's this amount where like the entire world has blacked us out of U.S. Citizens traveling, and then one of Ryan Murphy's foundlings from Glee, her body was found, and so it was like this other like, oh wow, that's really sad, and it was just a combination of sad, and I'm back to this routine, and I had a hard time. I felt a little crazy for the first time this entire pandemic season, and I have to say that I worked hard to get through it and thought about ways to switch up my routine and really sought out different things and tried to call a couple people just to climb out of this, because I was like, oh no, I can't start going down this spiral, because California is just now getting into it, whereas other states like New York are just coming out of it. So now is not the time to fall down. And but it's it was, you know, like Tom Hanks. I think I was telling you, it's like when he first gets on the island, it's like, okay, I'm on a deserted island and it's beautiful and I'm yelling and I'm starting fires and I'm proud of myself. And then, you know, I'm talking to Wilson and Bailey, you know, like those are my only sources of comfort. And what is the hope? And when are we going to be out of this? And so, yeah, so that kicked off my week. What about you?
Mine was a lot of the same. I mean, I don't know. I don't really feel like I'm in a position to complain because both my husband and I, both Joel and I, still are working, and you know, our kids are old enough that even when we were doing virtual schooling, they could really kind of do it on their own. So you know, I think it's more about just not being able to see family members who I have a couple that are pretty sick. So if I could see them, and I think our very first podcast was in North Carolina.
Yes.
Which, you know, is now a really big hotspot. And, you know, we got out in time, but like, you know, I mean, if you came and visited us right now, you'd have to quarantine for 14 days. And I think because here in New York, it was hit so hard, we take it very seriously. We're still very diligent. But, you know, I talked to my friends who are in Manhattan, and a lot of their friends have moved away. A lot of them, you know, I talked to Kevin and Yaz, who are friends of ours, and, you know, they've been living alone and by themselves. And just now kind of, you know, getting out and being social. Like I actually went for a walk with one of my friends the other day, and, you know, we kind of stayed distant from each other, but it was just like, oh my God, another person.
Right.
Yay, another person.
You're real. You're not on the screen.
Oh my God, hi. So that was pretty cool. And we actually went out to dinner tonight, which was really weird, but kind of cool. And, but you know, even that, everybody's really, really diligent. It's just a different world.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can fight it like some people are doing because they believe this is America.
Right.
Or you can get with the program and we'll all get through it a lot sooner. So I think, you know, I don't know. You know, because I work with AARP, I listen to their teletown halls that they have, which are fantastic. And they're so informative. And early on, the Surgeon General was, you know, telling people to wear a mask. And that was, you know, March.
Yeah.
So anyways, but this is about you. So, and you mentioned Ryan Murphy, and Ryan Murphy is the person that we're going to be talking about today because he's so wonderful, so creative. We geek out on him so hard, and he brings us both a tremendous amount of hope. And his recent project, Hollywood, specifically, it's something that we both watched during COVID, and it is so incredible. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it on Netflix.
Yes.
And if you don't have Netflix, hit me up and I will give you my password. Just kidding, Netflix.
And for those, you know, taking a step back, because, you know, we know we're nerds, and we know that, you know, we do a little bit of them, their Hollywood things ish. But for people out there who maybe don't geek out as hard, and don't know who Ryan Murphy is for whatever reason, maybe you've been out there making America great. Ryan Murphy is, you know, a Hollywood director, creator, showrunner, producer, just creative genius extraordinaire. And, you know, he's just really taken Hollywood by storm. And he's been doing so for years.
For 20 years.
years and years. And just more recently, you know, let me see, what do we have in our notes? He's had 6 Primetime Emmy Awards from 28 nominations, a Tony Award from 2 nominations, and 3 Grammy nominations. So Grammys is music. So that, if that gives you any idea of the creative level of his genius, that's part of the reason why we love Brian Murphy, and part of the reason why we're dedicating this episode of, you know, Sources of Hope to him. It's our love letter to Ryan Murphy. So thank you for making our life.
How did you come across Ryan Murphy?
I came across Ryan. You know, it's funny. Like, as I was thinking of, you know, when you asked that question, I was like, when did I? Because I know that he's been doing things, like you said, for decades. And I know that I've stumbled across him for the first one I didn't even realize was him was a movie called Running with Scissors. And yeah. And that was back in like 2006. I had to look up, and I was like, oh, now that and I went back and I watched the trailer, and I'm like, that makes so much sense, because that has so much of his sensibility to it. So yeah, I first got introduced to Ryan Murphy through Running with Scissors, but really it was, not putting it together until Glee, An American Horror Story as of late, An American Crime Story. So yeah, what about you?
I used to love that show, Nipped. It was, it was one of the first shows that was just super like dirty.
Yes.
There was just like a dirty, like people behaving badly, that whole, it was famous for the line. So it was the two plastic surgeons who would say, tell us what you don't like about yourself. And, and they were both like super broken humans. But the stories were always really deeply dimensional, and even though they didn't behave so great, there were always people behaving worse. And so it was entertaining, and it was smart. And I don't know, I was in my 20s. I just thought it was cool. Like, I loved watching it. So yeah, it was great. And so I just kind of remembered his name. He has one of those names that just kind of sticks with you. So I was like, who's doing this? This is awesome.
Well, and and he was starting to leave his mark, and even in a show like Nip Tuck, which I didn't ever really watch, but I just watched this documentary on Netflix called Disclosure, which chronicles transvisibility. Really, that's what I would call it, especially in Hollywood throughout all of time. And they mentioned, they talked about Ryan Murphy's, some of the things he's done in Nip Tuck. And one of them was featuring, a character who was playing a transgender person who wasn't transgender, but still pushing those kind of storylines at that time. And this was probably, 2008, 10, something like that. So, yeah.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah. So, like I said, he was just starting to test the waters. Because Nip Tuck ran from 2003 to 2010. So I don't know.
It was a long time. It kind of jumped the shark at one point, but it's kind of fun.
I never really got into that show, but and it's really now in retrospect, like I said, that I again learning that that too was Ryan Murphy. So
what I didn't know was him, that I because I've never seen it, was Eat, Pray, Love.
I didn't either. I never saw that movie. So when I I'm like, I don't even know how to talk about that. But again, that is the brilliance of Ryan Murphy. And I think I started watching Glee, but I fell out. There was an episode or two that I watched, and I was like, nah, not really for me. And I moved on, and it was American Horror Story that I just, oh my God, that series. But then I was like, wait, that's Ryan Murphy? So he can go from these dancing kids and these numbers to telling this really complex and dark, horror story. And so that's when I'm like, let me go back and take a look. And it was also, and learning that, there was, more of the storylines that he was tackling in Glee, whether that was, homophobia, disabilities, teen pregnancy. There was an episode, there was a storyline where one of the characters was basically his family was homeless and they're living in a hotel. I also love the fact that he had a diverse cast. And so I forget her name now, it'll come back to me, but she played Mercedes, and she was best friends with Kevin, not Kevin McHale's, but anyway, there was so many crossovers and so many different representations of people. And so I think, I became a fan of Glee, and especially for his ability to go, because at some point he was working on both Glee and American Horror Story at the same time. So that was part of the reason why. Hold on, there's a dog. Somebody's coming, Daly. So we'll just
Daly.
You're okay, dude. Yeah. So he was actually working on both shows at the same time at some point. And that's when I really leaned into like, okay, I really am a fan. So, but I think that's also why Naya Rivers, death being confirmed on Monday, this just really hit me because, that was, again, just talking about sources of hope. Even before COVID, I would lose myself in Glee and just really be amazed at the conversations that he was bringing to bear. And just what knowing how tight that cast was, and just like this, there's the rumor of the curse of Glee, because there's so many of the the real life people whose lives have been impacted in these tragic ways. And I mean, the final coup of that was that her body was discovered on the 7-year anniversary of Corey Monroe's death. So, the thing that did help me with that was Kevin McHale, who played, I'm forgetting his character on the show, but he was one of the characters on one of the main characters in the wheelchair on Glee. And he said, I'm not a religious person, but I feel like Corey helped find our girl. And, and just, knowing that the entire, the cast was out there with the family, it's sad and it's tragic, but at the same time, you have to, I wanted to look at that, at the light of that.
I know we've talked about this before, but Ryan Murphy had a show, I think it was only on for like a season or two, called The New Normal. And one of the actors was from the original cast of Book of Mormon. And it was about two men in love, and they meet this single mom, and they just kind of become a family. And I loved that show. I'm so bummed that it didn't continue. And I think the reason why it was important to me, I did some research, and Ryan Murphy grew up in a Catholic household. Mm-hmm. And in The New Normal is one of the characters is Catholic and has an incredible conversation with a priest. And the Catholic priest in the show was a lot like the kind of more progressive Catholic priest that I've been blessed to have interacted with. Definitely felt more Jesuit. And one of the episodes, the priest is talking about the theory of Jesus as a warrior for social justice, which I was like, ding, like, because that's kind of
warrior for social justice.
I grew up with. Yeah. Jesus was a warrior for social justice. Jesus spoke for those who couldn't speak for themselves. Jesus fought for the poor and the downtrodden and for minorities. And it was just this incredible speech. And I mean, this was years ago, but I will never forget it. And so it just kind of like you were saying, how every now and then when you see a little bit of yourself in something on TV that's so deep and kind of just a truth inside of you, to see that embodied is incredibly powerful and gives you hope.
Yes. Gives you hope, and and that's makes the world a better place. And even though Hollywood was a fictitious show, limited series, we see changes happening today, and let that be that beacon of hope for what we can aspire to. And I just love that he puts his personal experiences into the projects that he does, because he was also in the choir, and that was like the inspiration for Glee. So taking some of the experiences from that, including dating some of the football players, apparently, from what I read back in Indiana. So yeah, and just he is actually one of 4 creators that are helping changing the industry in real life. I follow GLAAD. I'm a huge supporter of that organization. And last year they put out a stat in their 2019, 2020, Where Are We on Television, that said that, the 4 power players in Hollywood include Greg Berlanti, Lena Waithe, Ryan Murphy, and ally Shonda Rhimes, who altogether account for 14% of all LGBT representation across the 22 shows that are included in GLAAD's annual survey. So imagine, what the weight of is on their shoulders for those 4 people in Hollywood that are actively creating content and casting inclusive characters, are 14% in 22 shows. So imagine what would be different if more people took up the mantle,
or if more people were allowed to pick up the mantle.
Well, yeah, and that too. Both, all the above,
Have the space to pick up the mantle.
Yes, and so we love Ryan Murphy. Would love to see more Ryan Murphys. I myself have had aspirations of that. So, but if you're out there and you're thinking about creating, keep doing it, because today is a new day and age, and we need your voices because it matters. They matter.
Absolutely.
But getting back to Ryan, I had to mention Feud too, because Feud. I don't know if you saw that. Did we ever talk about Feud? Mm-hmm. Oh, did you ever see Whatever?
That's the Betty Davis one, right?
Yeah. Did you ever see the movie Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God! Feud.
Wait! I watched Feud. I've watched it.
I'm sorry. You've watched it. Okay, yeah, no, but to me, it could have been part of the American Crime Story if it was more of a crime. I would say it's more of a social crime because of the way that Hollywood pitted the women against each other. Because they could have been great for, at least, as the story goes, and, his story and other tales from Hollywood. But I loved that it just, shone a light on Hollywood at that time, the womanizing, the, misogyny, the, toxic work environment, which when that story came out, it was in the backdrop of Me Too. The Me Too was just launched and picking up steam. So all you had to do was look from television, television reality, mirroring each other much. And, again, brilliant, because, it also gave, one of the things I remember reading about was interviews from Susan Sarandon and Jessica Lange, and just being grateful to be cast, and have meaty performances for older women, because Hollywood tends to jettison women after a certain age, and we're not complex and we don't have stories to tell, and
Well, think about, when I think some of the greatest roles that Ryan Murphy's created, it's Jessica Lange.
Yes.
Kathy Bates. Oh my God. Talk about chewing some scenery.
Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett. That for days.
Oh my God. It's just, it's like pretty much all he casts are like,
these power
star actresses over 50.
And I would be remiss to not name Sarah Paulson, because she would not have a name without Mr. Murphy. And I, just the way that she is able to switch it up. I think that she was doing People versus O.J. Simpson at the same time, or around the same time that they were doing Coven. So imagine playing Celia or Delia, I forget her, the head witch, and then having to play Marcia Clark. Wow, yeah. What did you think? Did you watch that? The People versus O.J. Simpson?
Oh, God, yes.
What did you think?
Dude, I loved it. I thought the performances were amazing. It was obviously close to home because, I grew up with all that.
Say more about all that.
That's not. But I think that the American Crime Story that I loved was the Versace one.
Yeah.
The Versace story, maybe because it wasn't so familiar, it was just fascinating to watch. It was fascinating.
It was fascinating to watch. I was in Florida at the time when that happened, and so that was like the big. Wait, we have the Who running around the state. I mean, great. Of course, another serial killer for Florida. Woo!
Florida man.
Florida man. But the reason I was asking you about the, saying more about that is because I thought it was interesting to watch it through the context of now, because it was such a, it was almost like putting that whole trial on trial, like, just having this space, and the same, in the same way that the Versace one did, because we have the pleasure and the peace of mind to have the distance, but and knowing that it's storytelling, so there's some liberties being taken, but it was I appreciated the fact that he brought it back and put it out there for people, because the coverage was sloppy because of the homophobia at the time, and here's this big internationally known designer who died in this very tragic way, and it just kind of swept under the rug, and we don't really talk about it today.
Totally.
There are different anniversaries for other deaths that come around, but nobody really, we don't, unless you're in the fashion industry specifically, we as a nation, as a society, don't talk about that. So, yeah. But let's talk.
And I think that's what's so interesting about those two stories is you take the OJ story, which has been done so many times, so many different ways, dissected, books written about it, blah, 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 blah. And he tackles that, and then tackles kind of the less familiar, less known murder. And I don't know, he's so good.
He's so good. I mean, and then just because like we did talk about a little bit about the casting of the big stars like Kathy Bates. I mean, Billy Porter is another one, because he shows up in Pose. Even though I'm just getting started into Pose, but he's been in American Horror Story, and he's such a force of nature. Dylan McDermott, who's in American Horror Story, but we both just loved him in Hollywood.
Killed it. Killed it in Hollywood. He's got. I mean, when are the Emmy nominations coming out?
Well, they've been pushed back. I mean, so they should be coming out soon. Yeah, I guess.
If he doesn't get one, I'd be shocked.
Oh, well, I know. I can tell you with Gallica, which I'm a member of the Gay and Lesbian Entertainment Critics Society, and actually today is the deadline for voting. I already voted, but because we're having our first ever television awards. And he is one of the finalists in the guest actor category. So,
awesome.
Yes. So I think we'll be putting our awards out sooner than later. But I love that organization because we get to just kind of be in Hollywood's backyard and pushing our agenda, diversity, inclusion. But yeah, so Dylan McDermott, and I actually gained a new appreciation for Matt Bomer. Because like he had been on, and I never watched that show that he was on, Blue Collar, that was on USA.
White Collar, and it was adorable.
White Collar. See, that's how much I no shame on. I just didn't.
It was made for 40-year-old white women.
Yes, which clearly. But seeing him in American Horror Story, and then I was able to watch him in Magic Mike XXL, and both of those for whatever reason, just because I was like, okay, I can appreciate you, like you're multifaceted. So, that's another coup to Ryan Murphy. Gabby Sibiday, I'd seen her in Precious. It was called Precious during Sundance, but it was called Push during Sundance, but then they renamed it Precious because there was another movie out called Push. But, I thought she was such an amazing actor. And so I loved it. Then he brought her back for American Horror Story. And then, of course, she was also picked up for Empire. But, again, just, choosing people that, look different but have incredible talents and not letting that otherness, hold her back.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about all of the different American Horror Story characters, and I think the one that stays with me is from Hotel, the
Dennis O'Hare,
like the non-binary
Dennis O'Hare. Yes.
Dennis O'Hare. Yes, like his story was so beautiful. And the moment, I mean, I could cry thinking about the moment when Lady Gaga comes in and tells him that she is the greatest thing that she's ever created.
Yes.
And that was just, I mean, there's all so much subtext there. And if you haven't seen it, you need to watch it. I think Hotel is probably one of the best ones. But it's just beautiful. And it's this friendship between, Gaga's character and Dennis's character.
Yes.
It's such a beautiful relationship, and it's not defined in any kind of traditional way, but the love between them is so unconditional and beautiful and a little weird and broken at times, but like, God.
And there's no confrontation about it. There's not like judgments. It's just like, it just is. And they're just able to be. And yeah, that was, I mean, and then stylistically, there's just some just really cool, really well shot moments. And, I just love, because I've been a Gaga fan for a long time, just him bringing her over into the acting world, because I think
we have to talk about when you saw her in Palm Springs.
Oh my God, yes. Yes, when she was just starting to come up before she had all her little monsters, but at the Dinah Shore, yes, hello lesbians, Dinah Shore, which is like the lesbian spring break, and so yeah, it was her in like the Palm Springs Convention Center, and on top of everything, she was sick, so she had a cold. But she, and so she was a little raspy, but she still came out there, gave it her all, and it felt like an intimate setting because, lesbians. But she had her bubbles, and she was playing the piano, and I was watching her, and I was like, this woman has incredible talent, and I loved her passion and just the way that she gave herself, even though, like I said, she was under the weather, and I'd seen a couple of her videos on Logo back when I was gay. They have this great music show called New Now Next, because it's not a gay channel anymore. Just stop fooling yourself. Or a queer channel. But yeah, so I was really excited to see her, and just there's more and more I've seen. She's just like a thinking creator, but still a passionately creating creator, if that makes sense. So I
shout out for her new album. It's so good.
Oh, I haven't heard the whole thing yet. I've heard
it's so freaking good.
But yeah, it was like a Reese's Pieces coming together. Ryan Murphy and Lady Gaga. You put the chocolate in my peanut butter. You put the peanut butter in my chocolate. Reese's Pieces.
I think as someone who's not particularly creative, I have so much appreciation for people who are, right? I have so much appreciation for you, because you're probably one of the most creative people I know besides like my children, but like just the idea of, I want Gaga in that role, right? Like that's just, or the scene where in the Witches in Coven, when they took Kathy Bates' head and made her watch the entire Roots series. Like, there are times when, I'm sorry, but I'm watching the news today and I just wish that they were immortal and I could take their head and make them watch the entire, because they probably haven't seen it, or they think it's fake news. Right. So I think about that one too.
Well, Roots is even saga light, these days. I mean, like people are really just starting to like kick it open to like, they did what in Tulsa? No way, So I'm glad that more people are leaning into it. But yeah, more. I'm glad that even without being immortal, the people that are seeking that information and are looking to kind of learn our history, because this is all of our history. So that we can right the wrongs of the past, and we can heal and we can move forward, because that's the only way. And so, again, that just is another reason why creators like, Ryan Murphy are important. And, we were talking about other people that we'll talk about, in future episodes of, like related to sources of hope. But I did want to just, throw it back again, just going back to seeing ourselves. And because I was telling you, I know you haven't watched Glee yet, but what really made me lean into Glee was when I learned that there was a lesbian storyline. And there's chatter in sites like After Ellen, where the new couple to root for wasn't Rachel and Finn, it was Santana, and it was Brittany. Britannia is what they were being called, and so. And then, as the episodes go on, spoiler alert, they actually get married, and they show that. And there's not I'm not afraid to say it. I cried. I cried that entire, storyline leading up to it. There's another character and there's a, gay boy marriage as well. So yeah, they talk about transitioning. But that character that plays, opposite of Naya River, not the character, the actress, her name is Heather Morris. She was actually a backup dancer for Beyonce. So someone said they brought her in to train the cast to do the dance, and somebody was like, there's something there. So again, somebody, I know it wasn't just Ryan. I know that there's actors and casting people that are out there, but they saw the fact that not only was she an amazing dancer, but she could deliver some funny one-liners. And so she was like a diamond in the rough. And, as the series, she went from not having any talking roles, but very much in the dancing scenes, to being one of the more prominent characters. And like I said, the love interest of Santana. And so, it's
wasn't her character's name Quinn?
No, there was a character named Quinn. She was the one that got pregnant. Breeder. Breeder.
Not me.
Not that lesbians and gays can't be breeders. That's like a throwback to the days of old.
Breeders by choice.
Breeders by choice. But yeah, no, her name was Brittany. It was actually Brittany S. Spears. So Britney Spears.
That's right, Brittany.
So there was like a funny little play, like with not Madonna, but Britney Spears popped up a couple, which you got to check out. You just watch it.
I will. Anyway. Do you think Daly could watch it? Can a 14-year-old watch it?
Absolutely. There's not really, not sexy time that she. It was on. Yeah, she can totally watch it.
I'm a terrible parent. I don't know. I was like, I wasn't really paying attention, and she was like, "Hey, Mom, there's this movie that I really want to watch. Do you think I could watch it?" She loves the actor Timothy Chalamet, however you even say his name.
I don't know.
He's adorable, and I was like, "Yeah, sure." I wasn't paying attention. It was Call Me by Your Name.
Oh, that one.
I was like,
oh. What? Yeah. Now I know who you're talking about. Yes. Yeah,
and Armie Hammer, and I love my kids so much. I was like, okay, let's break it down. And she was like, look, I skipped over the sex scenes because I don't really care about that yet. But the love between them, I just cried like a baby at the end.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, but I haven't seen the movie. But of course, I immediately was on like commonsense.org. It's like, one of those. I was like, oh God.
Yes.
So since we kind of broke that cherry, I'm figuring Glee's not that big a deal.
Right, exactly. I was going to say, especially if you're considering Dexter to Glee, I'm like, Glee, let her watch Glee.
Yeah, not Dexter. No.
Yeah, not Dexter. No, not for a while. Maybe The 100 too. I want to talk to you about. Ooh. Yeah, but anyway, that's for a different time. But
okay.
But you were talking about Hotel being one of your favorites. Is that your ultimate favorite American Horror Story?
I would say it was probably my ultimate favorite until the season before this one, the end of the world, the apocalypse. Yes.
Yeah.
That was. I mean, it was written for the geeks. Like it was written for if you've watched all the other seasons and you could see how things played out. It was like it was for the fans, and that was awesome. Like it's one of those things where I kind of want to go. I've watched the Hotel season 3 times. I watched Murder House twice. It's definitely one of those seasons where I want to watch it again.
Yeah. I before Apocalypse, I would probably say Coven and
Coven
and Hotel. I mean, AKA Bitchcraft. Those two I could go back and forth and watch and I have. But then Apocalypse came on, and like you're saying, especially putting Murder House Coven and the rest of the series in there, I just thought it was brilliant. But yeah, you have to be a nerd like us in order to
the one thing I wanted to say is the Freak Show one. I had a really hard time with because the clown was terrifying. Like I don't even think I finished the season because I saw a couple of his murder scenes and I had nightmares, and I just was like, I can't. Like, as much as I loved Sarah Paulson as the woman with two heads or two people.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she was she was incredible, but I couldn't watch the clown. It was so freaking scary.
That one, especially because it was really bloody too. I felt like that was up until it became one of the bloodier ones, other than maybe Asylum, which I loved. But
oh god, that was so good too.
That one is a strong contender. They kind of lost it with the alien piece, which I'm thinking they still might come back to. Just knowing that the way that this works. But otherwise, and that was really when I was like Sarah Paulson. I think it was around that time that Asylum and then American Crime Story, or maybe vice versa, but and then her going into Coven. But I just started seeing her just being able to shift gears and be, different people, and and just a strong character all the way around.
Yeah, I feel bad that I don't know where Sarah Paulson was before Ryan Murphy got his hands on her. I should do my homework because she's so great. I'm sure she's been in a bunch of other things. And in fact, I will make it my mission this weekend to find old school Sarah Paulson stuff because, I'm totally straight, but I love her. I find her so attractive in every character. I know. But there was some dress she wore on the red carpet with the cutouts. Oh my God. She's just stunning. She's stunning.
Yeah, I'm going to take that on myself. Because as much love as I'm talking about how much I appreciate and admire her, I guess maybe just because I'm like, I respect that about you. And up until this point, it had been enough, but I kind of, want to do my due diligence and, get to know a little bit of her backstory. Just kind of like this podcast has given, us the opportunity to lean in a little bit more into Ryan Murphy, learning about his Catholic, learning that he was a journalism intern and actually interned at the Washington Post with our friend, Kara Swisher. What's up, Kara?
By the way, she was on MSNBC the other day, and I love that whenever she's on, she's wearing the aviators because she's such a fucking baller. And I said to Jaden, I was like, see that lady on TV? And Jaden was like, yeah, she looks cool. And I was like, yeah, she screamed at me because I didn't send her the information that she needed in the format that she wanted. Quinn, how many times have I told you? Send me that press release as a PDF. I was like,
okay. That makes me feel better because Kara, thank you. I've never gotten the nasty gram from Kara, and actually a couple years ago I reached out to her to be a part of this panel with Sam B about power ladies, just breaking the mold in different industries, and yeah, she was just amazing. And but yeah, regardless, I have so much respect for her, and yes, I always feared the nasty gram myself, but so I'm just glad that we had a good working relationship. Hi, Kara.
Come on our podcast.
Yeah, come on. Yes, we want to have you. Yeah. Oh my God, the stories we could tell from the trenches. Yeah, let's try and make that happen. But do you any other thoughts about Mr. Murphy before we shuffle off on to
no, maybe I do want to give a shout out to Brad Falchuk. That's how you say his name. I'm not exactly sure, but clearly co-creative. for a lot of this. And,
Yes.
and clearly an incredibly talented person, and, married to Gwyneth Paltrow, who, thank God, wrote some really great cookbooks that have been keeping me alive, it's like something like It's All Easy. And these recipes are easy. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
And Gwyneth was actually one of the guest stars on Glee, one of the many guest stars on Glee. So if you like her cookbook, check out her.
Didn't she do the CeeLo song? See you right around town with the girl out there. Yeah.
But she
I
also
remember seeing that video.
She also did Umbrella, which was really cool because they did a mashup of Umbrella with Singing in the Rain. Singing in the rain, and they have like umbrellas and they're splashing around. So yeah, like I said, it's it's the genius of being able to go and do really bloody, gory slasher creeper shit, and then go and do these like brilliant dancing, sparkling numbers with stars and fabulous dancing. So thank you for being our source of hope and inspiration and fun during these times.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for
keep making it. And do another season of Hollywood.
Yes, and thank you for being a beacon, a champion of representation, diversity, and inclusive storytelling.
Right on. I think when people get asked during Black Lives Matter, okay, so how can I be an ally? Maybe the answer is be Ryan Murphy.
Yeah. Be my Ryan Murphy's friend.
Be Ryan Murphy. Yes, exactly.
Be my fucking friend.
Ryan Murphy.
So that was our love letter to Ryan, and we'll drop some fun links in there, but definitely check them out. There's so many things to choose from. So if you're not a fan of horror, but you like American crime stories, check out those. Check out Feud, which is based on the telling of the story between Baby Jane. I mean, not Baby Joe. The telling of the movie Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, with the two main actresses, Joan Crawford and
Betty Davis.
Betty, thank you so much. I just spaced. So I just looked at you. I was looking and trying to like, what is that thing on your shelf?
We can talk about my old movies obsession in another episode.
Oh yeah, no, I was just looking at that because it finally was like, I can't tell with those two things on the top of your. It almost looks like two fingers doing that on the top of your shelf.
Oh yeah, that's my my horse and my giraffe.
Okay, yeah, because I was just like
little sculptures.
That just threw me off. But why don't you tee us up with this week's? I'll get our tech ready to show it. But what do we have going in our? This time it'll be from Karen's Corner. We're going to pivot to
Ken's Corner or Brad's Corner or I don't know what other corner there is. But I think we'll do an upcoming session on the thing that is, maybe it's a session on like things that really bother us. And on that list, I would put the stereotypical tech bro. Now, for those of you who don't know, both Wadooah and I spent quite a bit of time in the marketing and communications field in technology, specifically in San Francisco and Los Angeles. And in that time, we came across quite a few tech bros. Now, most tech bros will not necessarily show their racism to the degree that this Ken did. I would say that they're slightly more subtle, and I think Wadooah, you have an excellent example of that.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
All right, we'll talk about that some other time. But let's get back to Ken. Ken, who's sitting in Carmel, which is a beautiful area of Northern California, enjoying a lovely lunch by himself. Clearly might have had a little bit too much to drink. That's what he's saying later. Seemed pretty sober on the video. And he's basically deriding the group of people sitting next to him at a table. Lovely family. I think they're celebrating a birthday. And he just starts talking shit. Now, the fact that he continues to talk shit when there's clearly a camera in his face is kind of mind-blowing, but only shows you how deep his racism goes.
Yes.
He's just taking off that mask and showing himself for truth.
Sorry, I got a little ahead of my game here. Yep. So without further ado, here's Brad. Brad being an ass. Take 2.
I don't see Brad. I can't hear him. Is he talking to shit yet?
Yeah. Go back to whatever Asian country you're from.
Oh.
And then Trump is gonna F you. So anyway,
that was the one that just killed me.
Yeah. So there we go. So that was Brad.
Yep. And I think Brad came back around. He apologized. The very savvy, media savvy family responded with like, "We call bullshit." And then he comes back with the like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna go to rehab." And I don't know why do it. Is there some kind of rehab that like has suddenly popped up where if you say something incredibly offensive, you can go to rehab? Like, what does that mean? Like, it's not alcoholism, it's not drug abuse. Like, do you get your brain zapped and it like takes out the racism or the misogyny from your brain? Like, I don't understand that.
If only there was, conversion therapy like that for racists. Like people push conversion therapy for queer children. I mean, think about the wonders that we do. Let's put that on the ballot. Conversion therapy for racists. So if you haven't heard all about Brad, go check him out. We'll include the link. But in addition to rehab, didn't you say he was fired?
I think he stepped down before he was fired. I don't actually know the company. I think it's some cloud computing company. But like that guy is smart enough to, he could be a mediocre white guy, which is a whole syndrome in and of itself, who failed upward. But I'm assuming he got a pretty decent education. I'm assuming he knows enough. I mean, I can't tell how old he is, 30s maybe, but like, is there really any excuse?
No, and really, if he was a founder of that, co-founder of that company, or, I'm sure he negotiated some very nice, walk-away pay, some exit for that's not befitting to the crime, and will, can lay low for a little bit and pop up again somewhere else, maybe, working for a Make America Great kind of company. That would be like, come on in here.
Come campaign needs help. Maybe he can go get rehab over there.
Yes, anywhere but here, please. You're not welcome. People like that are not welcome on the compound. So
and shout out to the server who basically was like, get out.
Yes. And no shout outs to the PR person that was helping them script those lines for not doing what the Facebook employees did to Facebook and walk away and say, I'm not helping you, you piece of crap.
Hey, maybe they did, and we just don't know. But maybe that's why it was so shitty. That like whoever was doing comms at that company was like, "Peace out."
Maybe, but maybe we don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for number 3. Feeling good. It's Friday, y'all, and I'm in a much better place than I was on Monday. I mean, I will, part of the thing I could keep telling myself this whole time was like, wow, it's July, and this is the first time you're feeling this way. It's July 17th, and we've been in lockdown since March, and if this is the first time you've just really felt bad, don't beat up on yourself. These are unprecedented times, and it's new, and it's a lot, and we're all in this together, You know, but we'll get out.
Except for Brad. Brad's aren't allowed.
Yeah, Brad is out of here. But yeah, and I appreciate it again. You know, people like Ryan Murphy, who I don't know, but I did get to see at the GLAAD Media Awards last year. I don't know if I told you that, but I was all fangirled out because it was the year that Brad was. I mean, yeah, that Ryan was there, not Brad. Beyonce and Jay-Z were there. But, you know, it was just, yeah, just amazing to see. And, you know, like just the star-studded people that were there. And Ryan was in his yellow, sparkly sequin. And I think he was wearing pumps or something like this in the scarf. But I was just like, I'm like, he's feeling himself because I don't think, yeah, he might these days wear some things like that to the Emmys, but he was definitely amongst his people and just like a proud peacock. And we loved seeing him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Be sure
to
back. Like, comment, subscribe. What is your favorite American Horror Story? Or, you know, what do you love about Ryan Murphy? Tell us about it. We'll talk about it. If you have questions, we eventually are going to start taking questions that come in once we start releasing these episodes. So please, I mean, of course, we know there'll probably be some hateration. So we'll talk about that as it comes. But they're not welcome on the compound. But thank you so much for listening to our conversations from the compound. And we'll see you next time. Peace out. Wait, I thought we were going to get closer to the, like, each time. We're like, see you next time.